The education sector has been inactive since March, a necessary decision to keep the young ones at all levels safe. With the various phases of ease of lockdown, the yearning of some stakeholders in the sector may have led to the announcement by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 that graduating classes should resume on the 3rd of August, and the country should join other West African countries to participate in the 2020 West African Examination, WAEC. Of course, parents, teachers, lecturers, and even students have reacted, and this may have led to another announcement by the Minister of Education. However, there are still loads of questions even after his clarification. We attempt to balance the various perspectives to the resumption of learning centers on this episode of Special Report. You're welcome. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Since the closure of schools in March as a way to protect the children in the face of increasing number of cases of COVID-19, some learning centers have taken to virtual studies, but issues of cost and effectiveness of internet have been pointed as factors hampering efficiency of online learning in the country.
For the avoidance of doubt,
then came the announcement by members of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19.
Only critical examination classes will be allowed to resume for those who need revision before examinations. As we have informed you, the Federal Ministry of Education will consult further with stakeholders before issuing guidelines that will lead to full resumption for the examination classes.
The idea here is that we have a whole month from now till then. Those who can and those who are willing, the states who are willing, should make their schools available for their children to revise.
The announcement set school owners like Mrs. Titilayo Shinaike into preparation mood. She gladly shows off their compliance with hand hygiene and other arrangements.
It starts from, obviously, sanitizer, which is now commonplace, and testing of the temperature. Okay, 36.2. Thank God I'm safe. And now
a banner outlining what the student would have to obey if allowed back into school is on display.
One of the things we have done is to put up the banner, instructing them as they come in that their temperature needed to be taken, that they need to wear their mask always, observe social distance of at least 2 meters when sitting or standing. They need to wash their hands frequently and also sanitize it whenever they open a door or touch any objects. We are also going to instruct them that they need to cough or sneeze into a tissue or their elbow. And if they feel sick, they need to stay at home so that they can be observed.
She's confident that the children would be safe in the premises as they have instructions which align with set out precautions even in the classrooms.
No face masks, no entry. This is one of the measures we have put in place to ensure that children comply. We have gone ahead to create posters, banners at strategic places to reinforce our teaching. So let me show you the arrangement we have for social distancing in the class. So let's go. This is an average class that normally accommodates about 15 to 16 children. But because of the current situation, we have reduced the size of the class and we are going to have only about 8 children. The government says only the GS3 and SS3 should resume. So we think with this arrangement, we should be able to accommodate them. And we still also have the hall, which we are also going to use.
These arrangements have been stalled now since the federal government has announced that Nigeria would not be participating in the West African Examination Council, WAEC. Weighing the perspective and questions on possible consequences of reopening schools and conducting WAEC examination, has prompted a reaction from the federal government. The Minister of Education, Mr. Adamu Adamu, announces a reversal and clarification on reopening of schools.
Schools under the supervision of the Federal Ministry of Education will not reopen on August 4th or any time soon. Our schools will only open when we believe it is safe for our children, and that is when the situation is right, not when incidence of the infection is going up in the nation. Yesterday, we called a meeting of stakeholders who will tell us their situation and what needs to be done in order for it to be safe. While the meeting was going on, WAEC announced that they are starting on the... So let's see who they are going to start with. And I will also like to, at this position, ask those states that have already announced, I appeal to them. I think it is not safe. I feel responsible for all children, not just the children who are in federal government controlled schools. Please, let's save our children from this. You can just take one scenario. One infected child going into a class. Because, you know, this social distancing is just some beautiful theory. When the cameras are there, everybody will be obeying it. When there is no camera, everybody will just be normal, especially children. One child is enough to infect everyone in the class. When they close class, they go to the dormitory. Everybody in the dormitory by tomorrow will probably be. So this is not the right time to open schools. I appeal to the states that have already announced to reconsider it. You know, if we are given the choice, me as Minister of Education, if I'm given the choice, I don't mind Nigeria losing a complete school year than exposing our children to danger. I think their health is more important than the examination they are going to try. And WAEC is a parasite of the Minister of Education. They cannot determine for the government what it does. I think they should probably change their dates or will do without them.
The minister's emphasis on the non-resumption of unity schools has given way to some questions like, can the private schools go ahead with resumption even though the country is not participating in WAEC for the year? What about states that have already resumed, like your state, where both public and private schools resume classes for graduating students since the 6th of July?
We have been asked to, put them in staggered form, zigzag form. That was what we have done this morning. And about 15 of them, because we have 47 in SS3, so we are divided into 3, so that there will be, well-ventilated classrooms, so to say. So we have an average of 15 in class for now, because the school is large, and not all of them are resumed. So we could, spread them out.
You can see that we have spent almost 4 months at home, and we are grateful to the government of Oyo State for allowing us to open today. We have the automatic pedaling for the washing of hands and sanitizing the hands, and we have the infrared temperature measurement to measure the temperature of the children. We also have the space distancing, the social distancing in our classes and among our teachers. So everything is in place.
In a state like Lagos, the last communication on the matter was that schools would resume on the 3rd of August. Parents and educators have not held back their views, which have been divided on the pros and cons of setting the children back to learning centers. Dr. Obi Iwago is a lecturer in the University of Lagos and has 2 children in graduating classes. He fears for their safety.
Quite frankly, I feel sad. I feel bad that I am part of all this. I'm a part of all this in the sense that this is the sector that I belong. This is a sector that I seem to be emotionally attached to. And watching things go this way makes me feel very bad. COVID-19, the world over, has brought out the inadequacies in all of us, in the system, in governance, in our health system, in education, in everything, globally. But then, the situation of the third world, of Africa in particular, is pitiable. if you look at it, are we ready for anything? Our educational system is in shambles. What you call schools, let's not make any pretenses about it. They're not schools. We've been deceiving ourselves. We're doing online studies. Who is being taught? Children of the privileged. How many kids have laptops? My own state, Lagos, they said the schools will resume on the 3rd of August, but it's for day schools. What about the kids in the boarding house? Some of these kids, their parents live in Port Harcourt, in Sango-Ota, all over the place. So how are you going to manage them? Now, supposing these schools resume and the exam is starting the next day, what are you going to do to check the spread of the virus? Are you going to say you're going to test everybody before the exam? Are you saying those who test positive will not write the exam? What moral justification would you have to do that?
There are other parents who have different views, from Lagos to Kano. Parents who have children in graduating classes who think that living with the virus may just be the new normal.
One day they will definitely resume. It's either now or later. So if they are going to resume later, why can't they do it now? Like for the pupils in terminal classes, the ones going to write their SS3 and GSS3 exams, I think it's even better for them to write whatever they are going to write now and know the next thing online.
We are now in new normal because no matter how we try to defer the resumption of our works, the truth of the matter is that this virus has come to stay. The truth of the matter is that this virus has come to stay, so it's going to really help the children if the government has proposed their resumption.
There are things that we parents are supposed to do before sending our children back to school. The issue of face mask, going back to school with sanitizers.
Some of the children who are the center of this favor reopening of schools.
Frankly, we are tired of this thing we are doing now, because this COVID-19 has brought us many problems. We want to go back to school, but now we are in home without doing anything.
I'm happy to go back to school and not afraid of coronavirus.
We've been given like 2 extra months to study more for the exams. So I think I've studied enough.
Some school owners have come up with the theory that children may be safer in schools than at home, but this could have some economic motivation.
Reopening the school is a kind of ensuring their safety, because the school there will be under obligation to regulate their movement, ensure that they are being disinfected, regular hand washing, make sure that the school environments are being disinfected too. But where they are now, their parents don't know, and those places are not being taken care of, thereby exposing them to a higher risk. And so, because of that, I would say that there is urgent need for government to reopen schools. When the schools are not opened, markets are not selling. Even the workers are not stabilized, because they too are not consistent with what they do. They are not sure of the condition of their children at home, and this is destabilizing the whole system. So I think for things to get normal or fall back to its place, government should reopen. If possible, they should also give grants to schools to help them ensure that those compliance, those measures are being strictly in place.
The challenge of physical learning is not just in Nigeria. In South Africa, after 2.5 months of closure, school children returned to classes in June. The first group of students, 7th and 12th graders, but it was not that easy, as Teachers Union had attempted to create a work stoppage, telling teachers that the school system was not equipped with sufficient masks and gloves. So far, over 2,700 teachers and more than 1,000 pupils have been infected.
Recently, they announced on TV that a grade R should come to school. I don't feel comfortable at all. I don't feel comfortable. I work in a hospital. I see all these things happening in the hospital. I'm really scared. I'm scared. I can't bring my daughter to school. I can't.
I'm not scared as long as I know that I'll be social distance with my friends.
I don't know whether when she comes back at home she will be infected or what.
Okay.
But there's nothing that we can do. As they say they must come back to school and resume, then yes, she must come back to school, because I normally tell her every morning, don't forget to put on your mask, don't forget to sanitize.
In the same month, Ghana opened classes to final year students scheduled to take their last exams in 2020. The Ghana Education Service insists that senior high schools will remain open and also conduct terminal examination for final year students. As at the 9th of July, when the country had a total number of confirmed cases of about 22,800, the Minister of Education had said that 90% of the Education Ministry staff had been infected. In Tunisia, North Africa, with just over 1,200 cases, schools have been open since June, with strict safety measures adhered to.
The precautions that have been taken are based on a health protocol agreed upon by experts in the Ministry of Health. It is a strict health procedure guide related to social distancing, wearing of masks, hand sanitizing, disinfection of educational institutions, and temperature measurement, as you have seen. And this is strictly applied to all of our educational institutions.
Studies are being carried out on how schools can safely stay open, with results showing that keeping students in small groups, requiring masks as well as some social distancing could help. But in Nigeria, it seems the requirement could be much more.
Past 3 months, most schools are bushing. Private schools all over the Federation, not just Ebonyi, most of them are struggling. Most of the people employed in the private sections of education are all unemployed because most private schools were unable to pay them salaries. These are challenges that I believe as a state and federal government in general will have to address them. Most of these children have been at home for almost 3 months now. Most of them have even forgotten that there is exam to take. What is the timetable for revision and all those notes? At the end of the day, the poor parents must have paid for these exams, and only for their children to sit the exam and fail, and then the recycling will start again.
In June, the federal government had disclosed guidelines for reopening higher institutions to include hand-washing facilities, body temperature checks, and body disinfectants at all points of entry to their major facilities, including the gate, hostels, classes, offices, and others. The entire premises of each institution should be decontaminated, and all efforts geared toward the maintenance of hygiene. University authorities would also need to ensure social and physical distancing in classes and meeting places. The issues that bother former ASU chairman Dr. Laja Odukoya goes beyond the lists.
For example, in Ogun State, in most of our schools, there are even no cleaners. The hygienic condition is not there. In Ogun State, as I speak today, some of the schools that are to resume, teachers are being forced to go and clean schools because there are no cleaners. Some of the schools are falling apart. Our healthcare system is comatose. And with this pandemic, nobody is even attending to people. You're on your own. So what we're saying is that government must up its game. Everybody must be involved. And the right thing must be done, not just to put students in school because you want them to be in school. No.
So what's this, you say the capacity, and then you say putting things in place. What are some of these things that you expect that will give you the confidence for children to go back to school?
Fantastic. For instance, one of the things, the protocol of this old scenario is about social distancing. Our classrooms are overcrowded. So how do you cope with that? How do you cope? With most of these public schools, they don't have enough teachers. How do you cope? So in order to do that, government should be telling me, for instance, that, okay, where you have 2 schools, whether you are going to run shifts, Because it's obvious, if a class must only have 20 or 30 people and you have an average of 80, you can put them there. So you must put in place mechanism to make sure you can only accommodate the number of people that social distancing allows for. Beyond that, the issue of environment, sanitation and things like that, yeah, it's easier to put water by the doors and things like that, but in most of these places, they won't even put it. So even the Parents Teachers Association must equally be involved. What have we been saying? The democratic rights of people are being violated, and people are not even being carried along. This is a democracy. What is the involvement of the Parents Teachers Association in all of this? These are the people that will feel the brunt at the end of the day. So what we are saying, where you have inadequate classrooms, and that means from each school, it must be specific. It's not just a blanket thing. When you have inadequate classroom, you must make provision in that sort of situation, how you cope. Whether in that school, you are going to have shifts.
Even if higher institutions were to meet up with the set out guidelines, there's the lingering issue between the government and the academic staff union.
Yeah, I don't mind about the higher institutions, but let me also tell you one interesting thing Nigerians seem to have forgotten. The higher institutions you are talking about presently in Nigeria are the private universities, isn't it? How many of them? What population of the students do they have? Have you forgotten that ASU, Academic Staff Union of Universities, has been on strike since March? Till now, they're still on strike. Nobody is talking about it. Nobody has talked about it. That is why the government doesn't even have the moral justification to come out to say that those ones should resume. Because ASU is on strike. So even if you say they should go back to school today, ASU won't go. So that problem is still there. Does this period not offer us enough time to see if we can sort out that problem? So that if we say, can you imagine after spending how many months, March, April, May, June, July, at home, when you now say the university should go back, those in private schools will go back. These other ones will stay at home. I'm sure that's what embarrassment the government is not prepared for. And that's why nobody is talking about that sector. Otherwise, yeah, it could have been easier that way. The adults, they can manage themselves. But what about the facilities too?
Building capacity, installing safe measures may give more Nigerians the confidence to allow their children and wards back to study. Or is it embracing virtual learning? What would be the way forward, seeing that the number of cases of COVID-19 is still on the increase? We would appreciate your views on Special Report. That's it for now. I'm Ini John Mekwa.